My grandmother was such a kind soul. She would help anyone who asked, no questions asked. But unfortunately, it was no secret within our family that our grandmother was well off. This combination of not struggling financially and kindness led to people taking advantage of her. No one takes advantage of her more than my uncle. My uncle always asked for money, whether for school, rent, or a high-ticket item he wanted. My dad would put a stop to it, but after he passed, it got a lot worse. My uncle got more aggressive when it came to asking for handouts. He made her co-sign a new Jeep and a home for him and his wife. The home in question was a massive 2,400 square foot house. By no means could they afford that. She signed against threats to have her grandchildren cut off. Now whenever my aunt or uncle wanted a new TV or wanted to go on vacation, they just wouldn't pay their bills and let it fall on my grandma to pay. His kids were taught if you want anything, don't ask me, go to see grandma. As they got older, they started to treat her just as poorly. As my grandmother got older, we encouraged her to move to a community where her close friends were. My uncle had other plans though. By this time, his kids were getting older, so they pressured her when she was over 80 to sell her current suburbs house and get another mortgage in a city so that his kids would have a free place to stay as they went to college. She bought the house my uncle instructed, which of course was a large 5-bedroom house for him to visit and his kids and her to live in. This is when my grandmother finally stopped supporting him financially. She was miserable in that house, and as his kids started to move in and trash the place, she had to do everything for them. My grandmother threatened my uncle for the first time. I don't know what was said, but after that he made his own mortgage payments by taking out a second mortgage. One day my grandmother invited me for a visit. We went and had a great time catching up. Then near the end, my grandmother explained that a change was being made in her will, and my uncle was no longer getting anything she owned. She said she felt like she had already given him his inheritance and then some. With my dad gone, it would come to me. She only gave me 2 conditions. Don't tell anyone, and don't give a cent to my uncle. When she did pass, will reading said everything was in my name. My uncle was calling me furious, going on and on about how this was his money, and his family was counting on it to support themselves. But as my grandmother said, I didn't give in. Instead, I started to charge rent to his kids, who were staying in the city. Only half of what I could, but they still acted like I was robbing them. My aunt, uncle, and their kids have been calling me a cheat and saying that I stole their inheritance. He demands it any time we meet and says they can't keep up with all their payments, and I should help family first as grandma did, but I still refuse to help. Am I the idiot for taking my uncle's inheritance? It's not your uncle's inheritance. It's yours, OP. Your uncle is an abusive, manipulative mooch, and he thinks that if he threatens you or rather manipulates you, you will capitulate and give him what he wants. Don't. You're not the idiot. Your grandmother set her will up how she wanted it handled. She wasn't strong enough to stop their abuse, and she's counting on you to fulfill her last wish. Also, charge them a fair market. You need to keep up the house and pay taxes. Your grandma was right. Uncle got his inheritance and then some. They don't get to ask for handouts if they can't afford their lifestyle. They can downsize and adapt their lifestyle to their budget. At this point, if they don't stop harassing you, you should evict them and rent the house out at market value or sell it. Another argument for selling. OP's grandmother was unhappy in the house she only bought to appease her son and his kids, far from her actual friends. God, that's so sad. That poor woman. She helped because of threats. I would be handing the kids, uncle, aunt, an eviction notice after going in there and taking photos of everything. You can then sell the house or rent it for a better price. If grandma's lawyer that handled her will do it, go through him, as he'll already know why. I would also cut all contact with your uncle and his brood, as they'll constantly be hounding you for money. Talk to a lawyer to protect yourself. Mini update. Following everyone's advice, I'm in the process of hiring a lawyer. I gave 24 hours notice, then went in and took pictures of everything in the home and informed Uncle's kids that I would be ending their residency. As I expected, I got yelled at by both his kids and Uncle over the speaker on the phone. He told me Grandma would be ashamed of me and that it was on me when they ended up homeless. I was just over it, and I told him I had a lawyer and pictures of the property and left. Thanks to everyone for the advice. Yesterday, my parents set me, 31 male, my two brothers, 32 and 34, and my sister, 41, down to discuss their will. My parents informed us that they want to split it 5 ways. My sister gets 2/5, while the 3 of the brothers each get 1/5. Their reasoning is that my sister sacrificed her childhood for our family, so it's only fair she gets compensated. In our childhood, my father's business partner screwed him over, so there was a period when we were broken in debt. My parents had to work multiple jobs to keep us afloat, and my sister babysat us while my parents worked. All she had to do was feed us and keep an eye on us. We were pretty calm kids, so all we did was play games and do our homework. It probably wasn't thrilling, but not exactly a tremendous hardship. I complained to my parents along with my brothers that it was insane that they wanted to give my sister's 2/5 of an inheritance over that, especially since she's financially the best off out of all of us. She has no kids and a dual income with our partner. My brothers and I all have children that consume much of our income. My wife and I work, but the general cost of living means we're just staying afloat. My sister also benefited from having hardship and academic scholarships, so we had minimal student debt. We didn't have the same access to scholarships as our parents' income had improved by the point that we went to school. My parents said that they were disappointed in us and said we needed to reflect on ourselves. My sister didn't say crap while my parents spoke, but texted us afterward that she had zero intention of taking 2/5, but we were all idiots. Am I the idiot for feeling like this split is unfair? You are the idiot. Not many parents are willing to acknowledge that they parentified a child. Your sister sacrificed her teenage years to help your parents care for you. There may not have been any inheritance at all for you to quibble over, if not for her unpaid labor back then. To put a finer point on it, the sister didn't sacrifice her childhood. The parents stole her childhood. A child did not volunteer to watch her 3 brothers. How many years was the sister babysitting to make the parents feel guilty enough to leave her a whole extra share? How old was she when it started? And OP, don't for a minute downplay what your sister did. That alone makes you an ungrateful idiot. You're not entitled to any of your parents' money. They could have left it at a cat shelter, and that would have been fine. Also, I think the sister's child-free because of her being parentified throughout her childhood. OP and his idiot brothers think it isn't a big deal, since all she did was feeding them and keeping an eye on them. But forgetting she sacrificed her childhood and her leisure time on parenting her brothers, while she had to watch her friends get to enjoy their lives, as it should be. I wonder how OP would have reacted had he been in his sister's shoes. With attitudes like that, I hope your parents spend their money and enjoy their twilight years without trying to penny pinch, so a bunch of ungrateful brats can argue over an inheritance they aren't actually owed. Inheritance is a privilege. Your parents tried to do the right thing by your sister to acknowledge your sacrifice for your family in a time of need, and you act like a pack of dogs fighting over scraps. I have a brother who has 2 kids, a female teen and a male 18. Let's call them Bria and Dan. He adopted Dan 6 years ago. The kid was in the foster system for 12 years. Dan and Bria have opposite personalities. Dan's always angry, misbehaves a lot, doesn't get along with anyone, and generally he's not an easy kid to get along with. Bria, on the other hand, is a joy to be around. She gets along with everyone. Admittedly, she's a bit of a moody teenager, but I guess that's normal. Anyway, last week, my wife and I wanted to go on a trip. My friend has a vacation home and said we could stay there. It's near a beach and Bria loves beaches, so my wife and I offered to take her with us. My brother asked if we also wanted to take Dan. I wasn't eager to take Dan, however, I told him I would ask my wife. Bria later asked me if we could just take her, because, quote, Dan ruins everything. My wife and I agree with her. Dan is always fighting with everyone, and I'm sure he'll be sulking in his room for the entire trip. I said this to my brother, and while he said it's our choice and he respects it, My sister-in-law thinks we're idiots. You are the idiot. This kid clearly has issues, but it's a result of what he went through as a child. You may not be his adoptive father, but you are still part of his adoptive family and should try to make an effort instead of singling him out. Instead, you only prove to him that he's unwanted and unwelcome. He was in foster care for 12 years. You have absolutely no idea what that could do to someone. Instead of trying to help him, you just decide to exclude him and write him off. You have no intention of ever doing anything with Dan. It would be different if you would do something else with Dan, but you don't even want to be bothered with him at all. I don't think you even consider him your family. Dan is 18, and he can be charged with crimes like assault and battery, so whatever behavior he had won't fly anymore. Dan needs therapy more than a trip. You are not the idiot. Tell your sister-in-law that Dan has a problem with anger management and other behavioral issues. Provide examples of what Dan has done and make it clear that neither you nor your wife will tolerate his behavior on your trip. Be firm and make your decision clear. As a parent, your sister-in-law and brother should take Dan to a behavioral therapist or a counselor to discover his issues. Dan will have to understand someday that he can't continue to engage in this behavior. My 20 female, boyfriend 23, recently moved in with me. Now he has ADHD, so noticing when things have to be done and actually doing them is a bit of a struggle for him. Now I sympathize. I realize it might be difficult, but it's also frustrating to come home at 8 p.m. to find out I still need to buy groceries and cook because he forgot, or to want to do laundry only to find out his wet laundry has been in the machine for 4 days, or wanting a quick bowl of cereal for breakfast, but having to skip it because he forgot to put the milk back in the fridge. Having to do his chores or fix something he started is a daily occurrence. When he moved in, we decided chores would be 50-50. I let him pick the ones he liked, and I did the rest, but he's not doing his part. We talked about it several times, but he always says he just forgets or doesn't see it. I suggested he download an app that'll send him reminders, but he thinks the reminders would only stress him out. So I made him a chore chart, the most childish one I could, with bright colors and smiley faces for a completed task. I hung it up on the fridge, and, well, he's angry. He thinks I'm an idiot for humiliating him like this. No one but us has seen it. Am I the idiot? Edit. This wasn't a first resort. I tried list, notes, checklist, and apps, reminding him in person. If I remind him when we're home, he'll say later. I'll remind him again, later. I'll do the dishes that were soaking in the sink for 5 days, and he'll get mad at me because he was just about to get to that. He also doesn't seem to struggle with remembering things or completing tasks at work. Not the idiot. People use ADHD to excuse any kind of behavior. I have ADHD, and I can remember to finish laundry and grocery shop and all kinds of things. Nip this in the bud. You shouldn't have to be responsible for everything because he can't remember. Think long and hard about the future. Will you marry and have kids with him? You'll be juggling everything then alone, or having to follow him around and telling him what to do. Everyone's the idiot here. Honestly, childish color coding and eye-catching images also help me, but if someone made such a chart independently because they'd reached their limit with my habits, the fact that they felt they needed to do that would be an issue. People with ADHD feel a lot of shame over their habits. I'm guessing he's lashing out because of that. It sounds like he's using his ADHD as an excuse for weaponized incompetence. OP, he doesn't get to treat you like his mommy and then whine when you treat him like your child. Your partner isn't incapable of coping. He's weaponizing incompetence. He ate and had to clean laundry before you. He got to work before you, etc. Now he wants you to be his mom and refuses to manage his disorder. So yeah, the child's chore chart seems appropriate to me. He clearly just wants you to do everything with no changes on his part. You could have made the most professional adult chore chart in existence and he'd find a way to call it emasculating because he doesn't want to do anything. Period. It's so funny to me. It's emasculating to make the chore chart cute, but not manipulative and mothering you when he doesn't do his fair share of the housekeeping. He's doing a great job of reversing victim and offender. I'd break up and move out. Emotionally immature people take years and years to change, if ever. I doubt he'll grow up in time to be the partner you deserve. Girlfriend's been giving me crap over this since Mother's Day. Let's see if I'm really such an idiot. My male 23, girlfriend 29, and I have been dating for nearly a year. She has a daughter, kindergartner, from a previous relationship, and we don't live together. So we were together the day before Mother's Day, and I slept at her house. The next morning we had breakfast together. I didn't wish her a happy Mother's Day because I thought it wasn't my thing to say since she's not my mom. Her daughter made her a card, and then I helped her make breakfast for her mom, waffles and some juice. During breakfast, she told me they would visit her mother, and then they had tickets for a play or something like that. I didn't get the idea she was inviting me. I left after breakfast for my apartment. Then I went to my mom's house since my siblings and I were going to have a barbecue for her to celebrate Mother's Day. I stayed over till it was late, as I couldn't charge my phone's battery the night before. I forgot my charger at my apartment. I was charging it inside. I didn't have it with me. Around 6 or 7 p.m., I go check my phone, and I have like a million missed calls from my girlfriend and texts asking me where I'm at. I called her, but she declined and texted she couldn't talk now. So I replied, I'm at my mom's, what's up? But she didn't reply, so I left it at that. I went to my apartment late because I hung out with friends afterward. The next day I texted my girlfriend, and she didn't reply again. So after work I went to go see her at her house. She yelled at me and told me she had been waiting for me to go to the play the day before, and I left her alone without even answering her calls. I told her I thought she would spend the day with her daughter, and she said she wanted to spend it with both of us, and she had tickets for me too. She's been cold with me these last few days over this. Am I the idiot, or is she exaggerating? Edit for clarification. My girlfriend said she did tell me in the morning about the play, and she had tickets for me. Honestly, I was sleepy, so I don't remember, but she swears she told me. I didn't invite her to the barbecue, it was just my family. Also, it's such a weird concept to celebrate Mother's Day with your girlfriend or wife. My dad never wished my mom a happy Mother's Day. Well, aren't all of you just dandy communicators? Your girlfriend should have explicitly told you she was going to a play with her mother, and she got a ticket for you too. And the play starts at whatever o'clock. Do you want to meet me there? Or whatever. Not a vague mention of going to a play later in the day. Maybe she did and you weren't paying attention. And you need more than one charger, so you don't essentially fall off the face of the earth. Did you even invite your girlfriend of nearly a year to the barbecue? If you had, she might have mentioned, oh, you aren't going to the play? What do you mean I can't go to eat with your family? I have plans. And then you could have discussed your plans for the day instead of this mess. Everyone's the idiot here. My dad never wished my mom a happy Mother's Day. That's really sad. Nobody cares what your dad did or didn't do. What counts in an adult relationship is what your partner wants or expects. If you want to have and keep a happy relationship anyway. One of these days you may make some woman a mother, so you celebrate Mother's Day with her because she's the mother of your child, even though she's not your mother.